he asked me to do 2 days at the Late Show to sub, because there was a bass player at the time. And I just remember I cleared my whole schedule for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, let me focus. Let me memorize the music. I don't know whose gig that is, but I'm sorry to that person because this is my gig now.
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And as always, I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce herself. Endea, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Endea Owens. I'm a bassist, composer, philanthropist, and educator. My main gig is on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and I also tour with my band, The Cookout. And I also do community outreach with my organization, the Community Cookout.
Yeah, that's awesome, and we will absolutely talk about all of that. What I would like to ask you first, Endea, is you were born and raised in Detroit, or
Yeah.
somewhere else?
Yes, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, specifically on the west side at Hutzel Hospital.
Yeah.
I'm a very proud Detroiter. Detroit is where I first started music, of course. My first mentors are from Detroit, and Detroit taught me everything that I know.
And how did you get into music then? How did that happen?
So I always gravitated towards music. My earliest musical memory was watching Tina Turner videos, and I would try to impersonate her. I wanted to do all the dance moves and sing just like her. And also the singer Brandy, I just thought she was amazing. She had a movie. She remade the Cinderella movie with Whitney Houston, and the vocals were amazing. I remember me and some of my friends, we wanted to be just like her. But what really started my path to music is when my mother and my father bought me a Yamaha keyboard when I was 8 years old. So I never took any music lessons until I got to college. But on the piano, they had like Four Elise and Chopin. I would just hit a button and it would play the classical pieces. So I actually learned them by ear as a child. So I'd be like, okay, oh, that's nice. And I could just play it.
Yeah.
And that's what really started it. And after that, I started on the violin and eventually the bass.
So why did you switch from keyboards then to the violin?
Mainly because my keyboard that I had started breaking apart.
Okay.
So I just didn't have one to take home. And in 5th grade, my school had a free music program. And at first I wanted to pick the saxophone because I just wanted to. Saxophone was just so famous. And they didn't have any. Everyone chose them. And I was left with the violin. But I ended up loving the violin. And I was first chair for the whole time that I played, and I did national competitions. And
wow.
It was just such a beautiful experience. I actually still have my violin. And just to actually add to how I started on the bass, because I could play by ear, that's the thing. Like if church kids, people who grow up in church, especially like Pentecostal, Black Baptist churches, Kojic churches, we usually just want to play everything. We want to sing everything. We want to dance. We want to do it all. We want to preach. And I noticed that there wasn't an upright bass player in the orchestra for years. And I was like, let me see. I think I could play that. I know I could play that. So I played Mozart's Symphony 25 by ear on the bass.
Wow.
And my orchestra conductor overheard me, Mr. Miller. And he said, okay, you're our bass player. And I said, no, I'm not. Like, I am first chair. I am the star, the Beyonce of the band. Like, you cannot knock me off. Like,
Yeah.
and he said, well, play the bass or get an F. And he told me that he would thank me later. That
Wow.
I would thank him later.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you are thankful for that shift now, right? Yeah.
Changed my whole life.
Yeah. Going back to your role models in terms of, Tina Turner and Brandy is, why did you not go into singing?
Well, it's so interesting. I think well every time I would try to sing like Tina Turner, she has such a distinct voice. So when I
Yeah.
would it's kind of funny, like when you hear a child singing like strong, like
Yeah.
like full chest voices. It's like what? And it makes you laugh. But I just didn't think that maybe I wouldn't be taken as seriously. It- but I remember that I was in choir. I was in choir. I was a soprano, and I was a lead vocalist at times. So that was something that I really really loved to do. And now I just boss my singers around and tell them what runs to sing. But
And you
yeah,
have great singers, by the way.
yeah.
That's cool. So how did you then, from a classical violinist and a bass, go in, of course, and the gospel I understand, that's through church, but then how did you get involved into the jazz and then ultimately your own band already, or um, did you go from Detroit to New York, or did you go to a music school ultimately? I mean, what happened after that?
Oh yeah, so my first introduction to jazz, my mentor Marcus Belgrave, he introduced me to Phineas Newborn Jr.'s album.
Hmm.
And that had Roy Haynes and Paul Chambers on it. And he would make me play Sugar Ray until I got it. And I didn't quite know what I was doing for a long time, but I did it eventually. And Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, Coltrane, those were like, that was like the holy grail for the intro to jazz. But I needed something that connected me to it more. Like I always heard like funk and R&B and hip hop. I wanted to really, I just wanted to hear myself like fully represented in the music. And I know it's a Black art form, right? But I needed to hear current sounds too, so I can really fill in the gap, because it's good to know the tradition, but there can be a gray area connecting to tradition to what you know in 2024. How do you connect that? So I needed to hear someone that was in the middle of that. And that was in the form of Roy Hargrove. When I heard his album Ear Food, I was like, oh, I recognize that. And I recognize that. Oh, that's what I heard on the radio. Like it just was so familiar. And I felt that I could grasp it better. And that, I know it seems kind of backwards to start with Roy Hargrove, then start with the greats, but I needed something to get my ears prepared.
Okay.
So that was my intro to it. As far
And
as
you could already, by that time you were already able to read notes, or still not, or how did that happen?
well, yeah, at first I learned reading in treble clef, like strictly. And yeah, by that time I was already playing like Night in Tunisia,
Okay.
Tricatis,
Yeah. Okay.
all of that. Um, and I knew the gravity and how important it was to play the
Mm-hmm.
music, but I just wanted to hear someone that sounded like me. Like when I played Tricatism and when I soloed, like if I put in an R&B feel,
Mm-hmm.
like is that okay? I needed something to like fully relate to. That's like that's like, for example, Ambrose.
Mm.
Like if he were to listen to Louis Armstrong, he could connect to it, but he might need to listen to Nicholas Payton and Terrence Blanchard
Mm.
and Freddie Hubbard in between to feel the connection. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like one of those things.
Okay. Um, and then, yeah, so, when that happened, you were still in Detroit or?
I was still in Detroit. I was actually still in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just really trying to be dedicated, fully entrenched in the music. Yeah, at the time Detroit radio was amazing. Like you could hear everything from
Mm-hmm.
Motown hits. Then one day you might hear Gloria Estefan. Then you might hear Miles Davis playing Michael Jackson's Human Nature. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was just amazing. But I ended up going to Michigan State
Okay.
after that. So I took the Greyhound to my audition and shot for the stars. So I did that. I played Jody Grind by Horace Silver and did all the requirements. And after Michigan State, oh, I also studied with Rodney Whitaker
Mm.
at Michigan State. So that's where I got my true bass
Yeah.
footing. Because I used to play with my thumb on the bass because of
Okay.
electric bass
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
church.
Yeah.
So
Was that
I
inspired
was,
by the Brothers Johnson?
yeah, Brothers Johnson and just hearing slap bass all the
Yeah.
time in
Yeah.
Detroit. And I was like, oh yeah, that's how you play the bass because I didn't have a bass teacher. I was teaching myself. And after that, I went to Juilliard. I also took the Greyhound to Juilliard, which is
Hmm.
pretty funny. Um, and yeah, I auditioned twice for that school and I got in the second time. And yeah, the rest was pretty much history.
Yeah. Wow. And a question in terms of, when you decided, music is the path that I will follow, does that run in the family? I mean, your parents gave you, the keyboard. So are they
Mhm.
also musicians or somebody else in the family, or you chose it because,
Yeah, I chose it.
okay.
No one is a musician in my family. I'm the only
Yeah.
one. And I just really believe that's a gift from God.
Hmm.
Like God just sprinkled some musical notes in my head and
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm thankful for it. My mother was actually a teacher,
Okay.
all grades for science and English.
Oh,
And my father works for the government.
okay.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. Um, so what happened after Juilliard?
So after Juilliard, I got my grad degree and I started touring. I had an audition to tour on the Diana Ross tour with Rhonda Ross.
Hmm?
And I had to audition at Rhonda's place and get out my electric bass and play all the tunes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was on that tour for about a month and that was amazing. Being around Rhonda,
Hmm.
being around Diana telling me that I'm a great bass player. It was
And were you playing stand-up bass or electric there? Okay.
electric. Yep. Yeah, so that was like one of the moments I was like, oh my gosh. And I toured with Camille Thurman. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
Camille gave me my first international tour date in Paraguay. And yeah, I was touring with Jasmine Horn, Steve Teray, just a lot of people. Yeah.
And then, then you end up, a lot of people might recognize you. Well, this is the podcast, but they should look at the promos that we are going to make from the Colbert Show, right? From the Steve Colbert. Yeah. How did you get into that band?
Well, it was interesting because I didn't know anyone in the band, including Jon, like no one. And I used to play a small jazz club every night, but I used to do the late night the sessions that didn't end until after 4 a.m. But I would love being there, and I would do my best because I always do my best. And Roy Hargrove used to be there mostly every night, so I was really always trying to play my best because he was like one of my musical heroes. I absolutely could not believe it. So one night I was playing, it's like, oof, all right, there were no bass players. So I was like, okay, here we go again. No bass players at the jam session. But Joe Saylor, the drummer in the band, he was somewhere in there, and he didn't even speak to me, but he told Jon Batiste that oh, you should check out this bass player. Like, she's really, really good. And Jon ended up getting my number somehow. He called me from an unknown number. I almost hung up. Like, who is this? And we had a long conversation actually, about life and music and just our ideas about people and humanity. And after that, a few months went by. In 2019, August of 2019, he asked me to do 2 days at the Late Show to sub, because there was a bass player at the time. And I just remember I cleared my whole schedule for 2 weeks. I was like, okay, let me focus. Let me memorize the music. I don't know whose gig that is, but I'm sorry to that person because this is my gig now. And I just played my heart out. And they ended up hiring me 2 weeks later.
Wow.
And at first they were like, okay, we're going to do 3 months. Then it was like, okay, we're going to do 6 months. And then after a year's time, I was signing the contract for the show. So
so how many years have you played in that band now?
It'll be 5 years in August.
Wow.
Yeah. So
okay. And that's not a whole year, right? So you have also time to tour with your own band as well.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. When did your own band start? And your own band is called the Cookout.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, let me see. I started my band around the same time that I started the show.
Oh.
Because we had our first gig at Smalls. Because I remember around the time I was feeling a little bit frustrated at the environment towards female musicians.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person, if something is not working, I'm going to find another solution. And that solution sometimes is moving in my own path or creating my own lane. So that's what I did. I said, okay, this person didn't really respect me, or this person said this, or this person isn't really about the music. Like, this person wants a token player in the band. I'm just going to start my own band, and I'm going to make it as inclusive as possible. The music is going to be at a high level. And two of the groups that I formed the sound from, I wanted to sound like Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. I'm still trying to sound like because I just love the power in Art Blakey and the Messengers. It's just so powerful, free for
Mm.
all. Just, oh my gosh, that album
Mhm.
is amazing. And of course, Roy Hargrove, his quintet, his
Mhm.
sextet, his big band. It's like I wanted to sound just like this, so I had a sextet
Mhm.
with no vocals. So that was the original band, and I used to play Mosaic by Art Blakey
Okay.
every night. That was the first
Yeah. Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
And yeah, so after that, we would do maybe 1 to 4 gigs a
Mhm.
year, but they would be great.
Yeah.
They would be great gigs. And I had Linda Briseño also at the time, who was an amazing trumpet player. And yeah, yeah, that's yeah,
And
everything
and
started.
and when did you start? Because you're also composer. When did that start?
I started that at Juilliard actually around the
Okay.
time where I was at Juilliard.
Mhm.
So the first 2 songs that I wrote, it was Feel Good, which is
Mhm.
my original. I wrote that at the Ravinia Institute.
That's also the title of the album, right? Your first album. Yeah.
Yes. And I also wrote For the People. It was originally entitled For the Brothers
Mm.
because I wrote it for Trayvon Martin. That
Okay.
was the
Okay.
original
Got
thought
it.
process.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that now you feel that in the song. I didn't know that. So um, yeah, and one song that is very close to my heart. Actually, I told you, I have a running list, and the first song, when I go running, is "Where the Nubians Grow." So I hear that every day. Uh, how did that song come about?
Wow. That came about 2 years ago. Well, maybe a year and a half ago. I was actually writing a big band composition for Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Mm.
So I was talking to Wynton a lot about just how do you form a good song and what are the
For the audience, that's Wynton Marsalis, right?
yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes. And we were going through all these hymns and spirituals,
Hmm.
and he would have me play them every week, play a new one every week, and just notice the changes within
Hmm.
it. But also writing that big band composition was a challenge.
Hmm.
I've written big band compositions before, but for some reason that one was a lot
Mm.
because it was the longest one that I've ever written. It was 11 minutes long,
Yeah.
original music. And it was a lot. and in between that, I wrote Where the Nubians Grow because I was trying to like find the inspiration
Mm.
within myself.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, like I can do this. That was the thought process. It was like determination. I can do this. I can do
Huh.
anything. And I would listen to this album. It's a Big Sean album. It's a rap album,
Mhm.
but on the album, there's an interlude by Stevie Wonder
Mhm.
that and he talks about walking in your purpose and walking in your light and just like knowing your divine destiny.
Mhm.
And I would listen to that before I wrote it. And then also Erica Badu has an interlude,
Mm.
and she talks about the strength and beauty of Detroiters and
Mhm.
how there's something in the water there that you just can't put a name on it. And at the end, she says, Detroit, where the Nubians grow. So
Okay.
I was actually
Okay.
listening to all this, and yes, that was just a song of determination, and
Yeah.
I can do anything, and this is great. And
Wow.
whatever I put out is
Mm.
powerful. So I
Yeah.
just
It's
let it.
extremely powerful because when it's cold or I don't want to run, that song starts playing and I think, okay, there we go. So
Yes, yes.
there's
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Thanks for and then I really encourage the folks to listen to that song. Well, they should listen to your whole album. Tell a bit about that first album. How did
Wow.
it come about? Yeah.
Yeah, so Feel Good Music, of course, is my first album. Like I just wanted to name it Feel Good Music because
Hmm.
that's how I describe a lot of music growing up. That's what a lot of Detroiters described it as, like, ooh, that's that feel good. So I wanted my whole album to sound like that, but I also wanted it to sound eclectic and just whatever I put
Hmm.
on the album was okay because I
Yeah.
know a lot of people do standards
Hmm.
and everything. That's not really where my heart was at. I just wanted to be myself and put my best foot forward for where I was.
Hmm.
And that was it. And I wanted to give sounds of Detroit and sounds of jazz in my perspective.
Mm.
Like Detroit Fight Song, I named it Detroit Fight Song because of Haitian Fight Song that
Mm.
Charles Mingus wrote.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, I'm writing this in honor of Charles Mingus and Haiti, the people of Haiti. What can I do? I can make it into a kind of compa jazz fusion. So that's why it sounds the way it does.
Hmm.
Cycles. I wanted to, I just wanted to write something that was just, that you just couldn't grasp.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like this is just powerful. It has that Art Blakey feel.
Hmm.
But wait, we're here, we're there. It's elusive.
Hmm.
And also Raven's Prayer. I wanted to make a gospel version of Chick Corea's songs.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, what melody would Chick Corea write like? Because I love Chick Corea so
Hmm.
much. Okay, but how can I make it gospel? Oh yeah, it's all connected. So I just really wanted to put whatever I wanted to put on the album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
And
it all
and
came from art.
and definitely, when you go to your concert, there are for sure many moments where you feel, you're bringing us to church. So even people that have never gone to church, they will feel, they know, they will experience them for the first time what it is to be to church. Is that a correct observation, or something you think about or strive, towards, or?
Um, I wouldn't say that's sometimes it's not even intentional.
Hmm.
I think when the spirit moves, the
Yeah.
spirit just moves.
Hmm.
And I think it's something that's inside of you
Mm.
that never leaves. So you might not even be trying to do that, but I've always been a person that loves to give to people
Hmm.
and that loves to spread happiness and joy to people. So I I'm always happy when I'm playing
Hmm.
my bass. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just bound to happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, like since we are at a show, I know since the 60s people are like, okay, sit down and listen to jazz.
Hmm.
But I'm like, okay, if you want to sit down, sure. But if you want to dance, like if this moment is our last moment, let's make it count.
And no, and definitely, your music. Yeah, it's very difficult to remain in your chair. Although, when you play a dizzy club, it's less so that people stand up, but it's when you played at North Sea, that was a different ball game because everybody was
Yeah.
dancing. When I saw you playing there, and yeah, tell a bit about your cookout, because your cookout is not only your band, it's also an organization that you're running, and yeah, tell us about that, because we
Yeah.
have something in common. We both feel strongly about that we should end hunger in the world and make this world a little bit better, right? Yeah.
Yes. And honestly, it's easier it would be pretty easy to end world hunger if the top 1% just gave a little bit of their money, but that's for another day.
Yeah.
But the community cookout, I started that on July 4th of 2020. My great friend Uni Mojica, she used to work at Jazz and Lincoln Center. I called her up maybe 2 days before I was going to do it. And I said, you know, this pandemic is insane. A lot of people are losing their jobs. A lot of people have nothing. They're losing everything. They're losing their homes. I'm thinking about feeding some people. I'm going to do it on 125th Street in Harlem. And I said, can we use your father's car? And she said, sure. So we were in this small little car and we got all these meals from a restaurant in Harlem. And we went on 125th Street between Lexington and Park Avenue. That area is actually known for, well, partially known for a lot of drug addicts, a lot of homeless people, what people would deem as undesirable people, and people that are meant to be invisible. But I believe that everyone matters. Just from the beginning to the end, everyone has a purpose. So I went right in the middle of it and we put the food on top of her father's hood of his car, and we passed out 150 meals that day. There were so many people, pregnant women, couples, children, just everybody. There was almost a fight over the last jerk chicken. I had to break it up, but anyway. But yes, and then I saw that people were still in line. We ran out of food, so I started giving people money out of my pocket and a little extra money to pay for bills, whatever they needed. It was a lot of tears, a lot of everything. So then I saw the need and I said, okay, let me do this every month. And then I was like, okay, I'm working. Thankfully, I had just got the job at Colbert like right before the pandemic.
Oh, the show went on during the pandemic? That was not because many shows they were done from home, but that was not the case for the show you were on.
We did the show remotely, so we.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay, okay.
We were not out of the job, so I just wanted to share my blessings with people. So I went to every borough and hired musicians. So everybody got a free music concert. I went to a lot of different local restaurants and they got money for their restaurants. And yeah, there were so many people that got fed and finally heard jazz. Like I heard a lot of people say this is the first time we've heard jazz in over a decade outside. This is so rare to see live music. So I'm very happy for what the cookout has meant to people.
Yeah. And you're still doing it? Is that still going on?
Yes. So I actually took a hiatus because I actually had to give back personally to my own family. So I took a small break, but in August of 2023, I did a cookout for the Charlie Parker Festival.
Okay.
And the Edinburgh Festival in Scotland. And I did one in November. And I plan on doing the cookout this month, but in a different kind of way. Maybe more one-on-one with a big, fuller concert at 3 times out the year. But yeah.
That's awesome that you're doing that. And just for the listeners, you know, when they go to your website, endeaowens.com, right?
Yes.
They can read about, you know, those cookout events as well, and outside of the fact that they should check out your album and buy it. I would like to go to the next part of our conversation. um, or you might not know that this podcast is a spin-off of a 100-mile walk that I started in 2011, 2012 to raise awareness and funds about hunger, poverty, and injustice. So, a question that I always ask to my guests, and this has become my virtual walk with my guests. If you would be asked to walk 100 miles, so 15 to 20 miles per day, which makes, in 5 to 7 days, 100 miles, for which cause would you walk and why?
Wow, for which cause?
Yeah.
Wow. I would do it for any like homelessness awareness or specifically women's shelters. Because I actually have experience in that. So as a teen, me and my mother, through the No Child Left Behind Act, my mother actually lost her teaching job. And we did become homeless, and we were in a women's shelter. And people say, oh, there's shelters in the US, all that, but there's not enough. And sometimes there's not enough food. There's not enough clothes, everything. And I think if we would just be more aware of housing awareness and welfare, and also just women's rights and women's shelters, and also men's shelters, children's shelters, just shelters in general. Let me just say that. It would probably be very good for that. And probably help a lot, because once you have shelter and a roof over your head, you're more likely to like find work, because now you can get a clean shower, you have food, your mind is more focused, and you have somewhere to go at the end of the night. You're not truly worried. So I would do it for that cause.
Okay. And how old were you when you were in that situation?
I was 16, so 16 to almost 18, and yeah,
that's tough. Yeah. And you have brothers and sisters, or the only child?
I do, and I have one older sister who I grew up with, but our ages are gapped, so she's 7 years older than me.
Okay.
But yeah.
And she's not in music.
Well, she played the clarinet. She tried. She failed. She was more into science.
Which is also important,
Yes, she
and
is.
awesome. Yeah. Okay. That's great. Hey, and when I do the 100-mile walk, I'm very often accompanied by, other people who walk with me maybe for a mile or sometimes the whole day. And then we talk about, life and, why are we on Earth? What's the purpose? And so strangely enough, we talk then also about religion and spirituality, and especially about the younger generation. Are they changing? Is, church less important than it was, for previous generations? And some say no, it's similar, although maybe the younger generation is less inclined to go to the church as a building, but it doesn't mean that they don't believe anymore. So there are different opinions. My question to you is, what do you see happening among the youth in your community? Let's say, in Detroit, or you live now in New York, or
yes, I live in New York. As far as church goes, just that whole subject.
Yeah, youth. Do you see them going to church? Are they spiritual? What do you see?
I see a lot of people who are spiritual. I know a lot of people who went to church at an early age. And sometimes for some people, it was just too strict of an environment. I think the beauty in humanity is being able to make mistakes, and it's okay. and you get better, but not necessarily get shamed. So I think that's where a lot of people are like, I'll have church at home. But there's something so beautiful about fellowshipping with large groups of people, or just two or more. The Bible says when two or more gathered, of course. It's something that I think should stay in tradition, because when you're around like-minded people, like, you just may never know what help you need and how the spirit can move in that way, because you can't do everything by yourself. And I think that's a really sad thing in this country in general, the individualism of people, of society, even without religion. You just cannot do it by yourself. That's why you see so many people getting burned out and all that. But I do think people should do what they want, but also just maybe be a little bit more open, just give it another try. Because when you're young, you have to do what your parents say or what your adults in your life tell you. Now you can move with your own decisions. So if you don't necessarily like one place of worship, you can go to another. Or if you say, okay, I don't like any of it, talk to a friend. A lot of people are dealing with mental health issues alone. That's where that individualism really takes a downfall. Like, the mental health issues are on a rise. So yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing that is happening. I love the idea that people are finding God within themselves. I think that's important. But I think just having a community and a tribe that you can go to for help is also important.
Yeah.
You have to have that in life.
I no, and I definitely resonate with that. That we all need some kind of community. That we also need to try to understand others, and if you try to do that, you realize that there are always things that you can start talking about, and that might be the beginning of less polarization and more peace. So what I try to do also with this podcast is bring people together. I hope that this podcast is contributing to connecting people with each other, and I try to do that also by sharing a question of a previous guest with my present guest, and that's you. So the question for you from the previous guest is kind of a tough one, but I think you can handle it. It's talking about sustainable development goals, and I don't know if you're familiar with those goals. They've been established by us as the world. Many countries, all countries were involved. 17 goals were identified. Goal number 2 is end hunger. Goal number 1, sustainable goal number 1 is end poverty. Goal number 5 is ensure equity, equality. The question of the previous guest for you is,
Yeah, well, I guess my question would be back to the SDGs. So, like I said, we're halfway to achieving them in terms of the timeline, not necessarily in terms of progress. So, seeing as we are halfway to where we're supposed to achieve the goals, what do you think we need to do as a community to achieve those goals in the next 6 years?
Wow. I hate to make this such a cliche, but we really need to tax the rich a little bit more. We really do. There's no reason why most of the world's money should be in the top 1% of people. Like, it is mind-boggling. And I just look at myself. If I can go out and feed people with a few thousands out of my check and still have a roof over my head, like, I can't even imagine what the billionaires can do. So I really think it comes to that. I'm also thinking about how we take care of the earth.
Mhm.
So I saw this story out of West Africa where they were using recycling bottles and papers, all of that things,
Mhm.
aluminum cans, bottles, and they were actually making sheds,
Mm.
homes for people. So there are some things that we can do. We just have to get creative.
Mhm.
I think if we find sustainable ways to use recycling that makes things livable, that makes things reusable, maybe lowering the inflation prices, maybe not giving almost 100 billion to, other people like that I think that would help. But
Mm.
some of the taxes, if we can actually find a way, if God is working
Mhm.
this year to tax the rich,
Yeah.
I think I know actually that would help, because
Mhm.
actually it's been statistically proven that they could
Sure.
actually end world poverty with a fraction
Mhm.
of their income. So that is what I would love to see. Um, because a lot of people are doing sustainable things like one by one. There are people that are making fuel out of plastic. That's where I'm talking about the recyclables. They're
Mhm.
finding ways to like make things free, but we actually need to get serious. Like, and that means really taxing the rich at the end of the day, because you need to do all these things. You need money.
Money.
You need
Okay.
cash.
Great. Good points. And but I also like you mentioning that we have to think about the planet as well. So yeah, points were well taken. Your question for the next guest?
Uh, my question for the next guest. Wow. I need one moment. I want to make it a good question.
Take your time.
It can be anything.
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Actually, this is making me think of, population control.
Hmm.
Like populations are rising all across the world, but a lot of people are not wanting to have children and start families anymore. Um, what what can we do to combat some future population decline? And do you think that we can combat climate change in enough time to make a sustainable future for the youth? And what does that future look like based on statistics, say in 2050 or 2080? What do you think that looks like?
That's a tough one. I'm happy that I don't have to answer it. So, hey, Endea, well, you know I love music. You've seen me at your concerts. So I always have a music related question as well.
Okay.
And here I'm really interested in curious about what you will answer. If I ask you to come up with a piece of music or a song that best embodies for a big part what you are about, which song or piece of music would that be and why?
Whoa. Oh my Lord. Okay. Hmm. Let me see. Just one? Oh my gosh. I would
I,
have to.
I
Mm,
have to admit that I have had guests that have cheated and then I allowed it, if they had to say I can't choose between those two or those three. So um
oh my gosh. Okay. Let me see. Pardon me. Let me see. I think I kind of know.
Mhm.
Yep, that's the one. Okay. Um, for where I am right now, I was listening to a lot of Pharoah Sanders' Astral Traveling. I always feel like I'm in a different galaxy most
Mhm.
of the time. But hmm, I was gonna choose Into You by Bobby Hutcherson
Mhm.
because that's just the gumbo for me. Like he just got it. Just
Mhm.
all of the sounds, all of the influences. I love Bobby Hutcherson, his albums. Oh my gosh, they're just amazing. So let me choose in between those two. Let me see. I would say Astral Traveling. That's more of my vibe. That's more of my vibe
Okay.
right now. I'll say today. That's not that's not my all-time favorite because I don't have a favorite, but
Mhm.
Astral Traveling. I played that song so many times this year. I've played it in my happiest moments,
Mhm.
in my saddest moments while grieving,
Mhm.
loss of friends. I played it just to relax. And there's so many different interpretations within that song.
Mm.
And it can mean anything. And I just feel that that goes with the title, Astral Traveling.
Mm.
Where, yes, we are human beings on this earth, but when we pass, all of us will, like our souls are traveling. And I feel like our ancestors and the spirits of everyone that looks out for us, like people always tell me when I'm having a hard time, like you're never alone.
Mm.
Like there's a whole army behind you everywhere. You can feel it.
Mhm.
So that song just represents so much of that. And of course the musicality is high.
Mm.
What I love to hear. But yeah, in the beginning of the song, it's just birds chirping and wind gusting and just chimes and all of the things that I love. And of
Mm.
course, Pharoah Sanders playing the most beautiful melodies. So that's how I feel. And that's how I want to move with the rest of my life, just
Mm.
astral traveling,
Wow.
just traveling with the stars. So that's my
Great.
pick.
So that's the song that then I will add to a playlist that's on Spotify. It's hashtag Walk to Listen, and all the songs that have been picked by my guest you can listen to, and that's from classical music to R&B to jazz,
Mhm.
folk, all kinds of music. I love to listen to it because it reminds me of the privilege that I had to talking with so many different people. I have a follow-up question for you though, because you're a musician. What I find interesting is that you did not pick one of your own songs.
Well, I'm well, that goes with my personality. I'm not a
Uh-huh.
person to like boast about myself. So that would be completely out of character for me. Um but yeah, if I had to choose one, I would choose, of course, either Where the Nubians Grow or
Mhm.
Feel Good.
Okay. Okay.
Those are the two.
Or is it saying something that maybe you haven't made a song that totally represents what you are? Are you still searching? Are you still searching?
I'm still searching. Yeah.
Hmm.
I'll never stop searching because I have so many ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. When
Uh-huh.
I put out the album, I was like, this is just the soft beginning
Hmm.
because the music is just gonna be so much grander, like huge sound. There's so many things that I hear
Hmm.
that I know that I can do. So yeah.
Okay. Great. Hey, Steve Hartman of CBS examined, or is still examining, I don't know exactly, how one simple act of kindness creates a ripple effect. So I have two questions around that. One is, what are your thoughts about one simple act of kindness and the potential to create a ripple effect? And the second part of the question is, if I would ask you now, right now, on the spot, to come up with a simple act of kindness, today or tomorrow, what would you do? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I agree that one simple act of kindness creates a ripple effect, of course. Would I say it's 100% foolproof?
Mhm.
Maybe. But yeah, I will take it back to one of the stories I told,
Yeah.
the Greyhound to Juilliard. That was a whole day trip.
Mhm.
And the bus was late. The bus was just, oh my God, everything on that bus was happening. And I got to Port Authority, New York. I'm in New York for the first time. I have no idea where I'm going. I just have a suitcase and a upright bass, and the bridge fell under the bus. Sure, okay. And I got out of Port Authority, and I was on the verge of tears because I was like, we're in rush hour traffic. I'm gonna miss this audition. I don't know what to do. I'm sweating. Wow. And this man was like, honey, it looks like you need to get somewhere. And I said, I do, and I don't know where I'm going. And I think I did shed a tear actually. And he gave me $40 to take a taxi to my audition to make it on time. And he told me to go and be great. Like, and that just blessed me so much. I remember the whole day, I was just speaking high words of affirmations to everyone. And actually during my time at Juilliard, like when people needed help, when people needed advice, I always remembered that moment. Like, everybody is starting from somewhere. Just it costs nothing to help. So yeah, that's certainly for sure true. I've known that that's true all my life because yeah, even growing up, I've had people help me so much. So of course, like I don't even need any stories or any proof to know that. Like, um, but yes, and you said if I were able to give an act of kindness to someone.
Yeah, right now or tomorrow, what would you do?
Right tomorrow. Okay. Well, I've been taking the subway a lot, and I've been seeing a lot of mothers with their children, sometimes on their back, sometimes little toddlers on the train selling candy and just M&Ms, all that. And I think I've been thinking about it actually. I think I'm just going to pay for everything and just have them pass it out to everyone. So that'll actually be the ripple effect in real time. Everybody gets blessed. So that's something that I can actually do. That's easy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
When are you taking the subway? I will be there. So no, I'm just kidding. Okay, we're slowly coming to the end, and it always goes so fast. I have a question that I've never asked anyone though to you, and that's if you have to choose between a trio, playing with a trio, quartet, or a quintet, what would you choose between the three? If I force you to choose.
Trio.
Okay.
But I would choose duo more than trio.
Okay. And if I ask you to, you can choose all the musicians, dead or alive, for your trio, who would you put in the trio?
Oh my gosh, I would have did a quintet.
Okay, let's go for the quintet then.
Ooh, okay. Definitely Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, without a doubt. Herbie Hancock on piano. I already know. Who's on the drums are so hard. Oh my gosh. Let's see. I think I would want to hear Elvin Jones with Herbie. That'd be
Ooh.
kind of crazy. And I need a saxophonist or a trombone player. Let me think of the sound. I'll have to choose Coltrane.
Wow. I would buy a ticket for that concert.
That, and you know, the sounds are so different.
Uh-huh.
That would be the best concert ever. And if you throw Bobby McFerrin in there, oh my God. Oh, Bobby McFerrin, Sarah Vaughan, Ella. Oh my God. Yes.
That's great. Hey, thank you so much for the conversation today and for everything you do. I mean, both at, the music level, but also, all the service and kindness and your whole being. Thank you so much and all the best with what you do.
Thank you. Thank you, Maurice.
Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.